Welcome to Coast View. Hope you're having a great day. This is the show that celebrates every single day the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, I want to share with you a quote from Mark Twain. And, you know, I don't talk too much about politics here on this show, but this one actually applies to both sides. It could be a Democrat or a Republican that may say something that may be twisting the truth a little bit, and later we start to see the truth emerge, and then it's kind of hard to undo their talking point, unfortunately. And this is what Mark Twain said about that. The glory which is built upon a lie soon becomes a most unpleasant encumbrance. How easy it is to make people believe a lie, and how hard it is to undo that work again. That's true, man. You say something over and over and over and over again, eventually everyone starts to believe it and understand it, and they talk about it with fact and passion, and then suddenly the truth starts to emerge, and they're still kind of telling that same line, and the truth continues to emerge, and eventually they have to change their talking point. That's just the way it is. But boy, Mark Twain was brilliant, not only in his observation, but in the way he said it. How easy it is to make people believe a lie, and how hard it is to undo that work again. I love that. I love that. Anyway, let's move over to my friend Paige Roberts from the Jackson County Chamber and just say good morning. How you doing, Paige?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Ricky. Thank you.
Well, listen, as a former broadcaster who has kind of seen it all, as a news person, it's easy to connect with what Mark Twain is saying because we've seen bits and pieces of that throughout our careers, haven't we?
Yes, but I would say you don't even have to be a news person anymore. All you have to do is have a social media platform, and you can see that. You're right. If people say something enough or hear something enough, they believe it as truth. And that's, quite frankly, then how we got to that horrible hashtag fake news.
It is horrible that we got there, how we got there. But, you know, the reality is that people, because of social media, and I've talked about this many times on my show, it's easy for people to find their tribes. And even when the truth emerges, even when they're faced with the truth, you know, you send them a special note to say, hey, wait a minute, I saw what you posted, but look, did you see this? And then they'll come back to you, even though you know what you sent them is true and real and substantiated and corroborated. They send it back to you and just say what you just said, fake news. They're not moving off of what they believe. Mark Henderson said something really great once. He said, we live in a world where people are awaiting their thought of the day on Facebook, as opposed to kind of thinking for themselves. And it's sad that we're in that mode. I think a lot of people who pay attention to Coast View, they listen carefully because they know that that we're going to be truthful and we're going to be honest. We're going to try to be interesting. We're going to talk to interesting people. But these are people who are paying attention to the show who really are aware of what you and I are talking about it, and they're trying to sort through it. And, I think there's a growing number of people who are trying to sort through it.
Yes, and I believe the people, for the most part, who come on your show, Ricky, are genuine. And if you have a genuine spirit, then you are going to be able to trust what's being said. You know, I just refer back to the scripture. One of my favorites is, don't throw pearls to swine. And the other one is to shake the dust off your sandals and keep on moving. So that's how I
totally agree with that. I totally agree with that, and it's so true. Hey, listen, I have a tendency to say this a lot when you and I get together, but your work is so admirable, and I appreciate what you're doing. Your name comes up often on this show, a wide range of people. I can name multiple guests recently where some work that you're doing, engages them in some way. But I thought my conversation with Jonathan Brandon was terrific. And, Jonathan, he's finding his way, and he's finding ways to contribute. He referred to working at the Jackson County Chamber, Ingalls, and Chevron as the trilogy. I think that's the way he said it.
Yes.
But that show, man, I mean, he's got a great social media following. The show's been viewed a lot of times.
Yes. And I watched it, and it was quite special to me to realize that you all had been talking about Jonathan's time working here at the Chamber. You know, when I was creating my own team here at the Chamber a few years ago, he was my first hire and helped me create what's going on here now. But there is just something magical about that guy in the most genuine way. He's so spiritual and talented, and he's a great writer, which, you know, you and I are especially attracted to people who can communicate with the written word. And if you'll just read some of his Instagram posts, he just turns the phrase so cleverly. And yet he's also, you know, in the very first scene of the movie Pitch Perfect. Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, in fact, you know, it's interesting because, you know, we talked about that actually offline. But one of the things we have to circle back about is his whole life outside of work. We never really got a chance to talk. That's a whole show in and of itself.
Yes. And he worked for me as he was going through this whole adoption odyssey, and the beard and the continual blessings and God winks, as they say, and to watch that little boy Oliver, who just looks like Jonathan could have had him himself.
Yeah. Isn't that sweet, though? It's so sweet.
Precious family.
What was interesting, because I watched it closely, and you and I have never really talked about this before, but it's almost providential the way that people like Jonathan present themselves to you. Like in his case, as it relates to the Jackson County Chamber and you know, finding him. Because if you watched him at WLOX, he was a fine reporter, did a terrific job. At a time when WLOX was working to really understand sort of how they were going to do their work in the digital world and the social media world and Facebook Live world and all this other stuff, Jonathan really had embraced it already in a lot of ways. So when he came into sort of this strategic or tactical goal that they had, you know, he already sort of understood it already, and he engaged it dramatically. He built his social media following dramatically. He did it a lot off his personality, and just a wonderful personality. People were, as you say, were drawn to that. So here he comes to the Jackson County Chamber, and then the pandemic hits. And so this opportunity for you to engage that skill set in ways that you guys were you weren't winging it, but you were winging it as it relates to the Jackson County Chamber and how you guys were going to do it, you know, from a multimedia point of view.
Oh, yes, I'd say we were winging it. And then I brought in Michael Sipp, who I stole from Senator Wicker, and then Senator Wicker stole him back. But Michael was here for a while, and I had taught Michael at Pascagoula High, so I went after him as well. And he and Jonathan were thick as thieves. So, yeah, they did some funny, some sort of social distancing dance on our Facebook page, and it just blew up the page. It was just crazy. But that's what you want. You want people drawn to your page for the real stuff. and,
right.
And they come for the fun stuff, but they also get the substance while they're there. And he has a keen understanding of that. Yes, his favorite thing is to call me Boomer, because he knows I'm Gen X, not baby boomer, but just to rub in how much older I am than he calls me Boomer. Yeah.
That's kind of funny. But, you know, it speaks if you know, just coming back to the chamber, the way I say about, you know, most of the chambers here in coastal Mississippi, it's not your father's chamber. It does the stuff that the chamber always traditionally did, as it relates to business and supporting business in that way. But when you think about sort of the innovative social media presence you guys developed during the pandemic, and the community building that you're doing, and, you know, looking out for grants and working with the mayors and the board of supervisors and downtown revitalization, and the list goes on and on. But it's an exciting world to be in for you, isn't it?
It is, because like news, it covers everything. And that's important to me. The best part of our mission statement, as you said, support commerce, promote growth, in order to enhance quality of life in Jackson County. And it's that section, the enhancing quality of life section, that allows us to really help a community grow and develop in healthcare, public safety, education, workforce development.
It's hitting on a lot of cylinders. That is for sure. Hey, listen, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Paige Roberts and find out the latest at the Jackson County Chamber. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast View. I'm having a conversation with my friend Paige Roberts, who's the executive director for the Jackson County Chamber. And when we went to break, we were just talking about how the chamber is up to so much stuff. It's a very diversified organization working to increase the quality of the community. One other point, coming back to something that Jonathan said, and you'll relate to this, and you sort of alluded to it. And I had lunch not long ago with a statewide political leader, and I won't say who it was, but it was just a terrific visit. And one of the things that he said to me was that it's rare that he would find someone who understands an issue better than he does. And that he was talking about me. He's talking about me on a specific issue that we were talking about. And it was very complimentary. But the point is, though, as a publisher, though, in order for me to decide we were going to take an editorial stance towards something, I got deep in it. I got really deep in it. And I never approached sort of the editorial views as something that was going to be off the cuff. I mean, we were going to do our homework. And one of the things that Jonathan said, to be a good reporter, you got to learn a lot about a lot. You got to learn, and to be a good publisher, you got to learn a lot about a lot. You were a reporter, you had to learn a lot about a lot. But to be a good chamber director, you got to learn a lot about a lot. And if you're serious about it, you're on a really whirlwind effort of continuous learning that continues to help you realize how little you know. And the study is significant if you want to do a great job at it. But being a reporter helps you in that way, didn't it?
Oh, without a doubt, because every day you're getting an assignment or finding a story that's about a different topic. And as you're trying to explain it to the viewers later, you're having to make sure you have a good enough understanding. And in order to communicate at the level that you would be writing for a TV audience, you have to understand it even more deeply than that, so you know how to communicate it in a very sort of pedestrian way. Yeah,
that's one of the things that I was always reminded. I said this before, but when we did readership studies, the average reading level of people who read the newspaper was about 8th grade.
Right. Right. And that's what we were trained in journalism school to write to, was the 8th grade level. And
that's just reality. I mean, if you just say sort of what's the mean out there for reading level, that's about it. And so I wonder what it is today. I wonder if the internet, if Facebook and social media has actually increased reading level because people are reading a little bit more, maybe? I don't know.
No, my guess is it's lower, but here's what I think is probably more of a factor now than reading level, and that's attention span.
Whew.
And so what you're trying to do, what I liken it to, is the beginning of Star Wars movies, when the galaxy, all of those things in the galaxy stars are coming at you. Well, if you consider each of those communication points and stimuli, okay, you want to be the one the person grabs to look at more closely, but you've got to do that in such a way that you stick out of just a universe of stimuli, and you want to be the one that they pay attention to. It's quite a trick.
Ooh, man. But, we always said, even when we were in traditional media, radio, TV, newspapers, we always said attention span was always the thing. We were literally not competing against each other, but competing for the attention span of our readers and viewers and listeners. Boy, that's never been more true than now, because you think about, watch when somebody grabs their iPhone and they go to something like Instagram or Twitter,
TikTok,
and they're just flipping through, and you got a microsecond to get their attention, and or else they're going to move on. And even when you get their attention, they want it to come to them so quick. The TikTok video, for example, or the Facebook video.
Yes. And they want to be entertained. And so when you have a serious topic or something of substantive content, that's a trick too, right?
Yeah. Woo, yeah. We live in a challenging time. So how are you guys doing? What's the latest there?
Well, one of your favorite people, Ricky, Roxy Condry, was here to talk about the Gulf Hills project. They have taken over that property. It's 12 acres. And she was discussing all of the research that went into the history of that place since its opening in 1927. Its time, as a very glamorous resort, and then its time as a dude ranch, and with Elvis there, and how they're trying to pay homage to all of that. And are reopening the original Sunset Lounge. When Roxy talks about their projects, it's just, you're in the presence of cool, right? It's just,
hey, but
they
you know what?
Are so cool, and
much
they're collective.
Much in the way that the Grand Hotel down in Lower Mobile County,
yes,
has really blossomed. I say Mobile County, I meant Baldwin County. Down south of Fairhope, that has become sort of a destination for families. This is going to be the same thing.
Yes,
it's going to be so cool.
She mentioned it. She mentioned the Grand, and that is exactly what they're going for. And she also talked a little bit about the Collective, which is their project on Porter, and that with its upcoming opening for their bookstore and the market and the beer and the bands and just the whole communal feel. And she said that the owners of Vestige are going to open a place, and they're growing the food for Vestige to cook and serve.
Wow.
Isn't that the coolest?
Wow. And what a really celebrated restaurant Vestige is, incidentally.
Yes. And so, and we talked also in this same meeting about Jackson County's Blue Way project that they're in search of funding for, and what it means to be a tourist location for kayakers and canoers or paddlers. And it's just all right here on the Pascagoula River, and it's so beautiful. And that is a big tourism industry. So, and the Amtrak stops, are going to be here. So we've started planning for the stop, the specifics of the stop experience in Pascagoula. So that's exciting.
Yeah, because of my SuperTalk Outdoor show, and although I've mentioned it here on Coast View many times, and because I was so focused on it when I was both the publisher of the Sun Herald and in Mobile, but Pascagoula River, the largest undammed waterway in the continental United States, what a watershed that is. Most people are not. You think about river, but it's more than a river. It's an entire watershed.
Yes,
that is rich. Is one of the richest ecosystems in the entire United States. And it's right here in our backyard. It's literally in your backyard.
It is. And a lot of people, as you said, who even live on the coast aren't aware of it. But I think that's going to be changing, and to bring in the tourists. And as Roxy said, even, combining something with Gulf Hills property, because it's on the water, and different routes that you can paddle. It's just very beautiful. And I think we've talked about this before, but one thing very positive and I think beautiful that's come out of the pandemic is people's re-engagement with nature and their appreciation and embrace of the outdoors. And this is a great place. The Gulf Coast is just a perfect place to enjoy all of that.
Yeah, I actually had the head of the wild turkey program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks on my show this past Monday. And one of the things he talked about is statistically, hunting, fishing, big deal. Lots of people were engaged during the pandemic, but just in general, people wanting to go to parks, people wanting to canoe, people wanting to bird watch, people just getting in the outdoors. The statistics from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks are incredibly compelling. And you know what? I think it's going to stay that way. I think people have sort of been reintroduced to it. Some people might have been introduced to it for the first time, but they're highly engaged. They see the spiritual awakening that occurs when you get out in nature, and it's real and it's contagious, and they'll be back again.
I agree. This is not something I think that's going to go away. I think it's going to continue to expand. And I think that, we're also benefiting from people moving out of the more densely populated areas to places like this for that reason, too. You just cannot find a place, I think, in this country where you're able to have industry and business and the pristine environment and nature coexist as beautifully as it does in South Mississippi.
Boy, you're so right. Hey, Paige, we will, I say this every time, but we need to visit more often. I really enjoy our time together, but we're out of time for today. Have a great day, my friend, and we will see you soon.
You too, Ricky.
Okay, we'll see you after this break.